dancing intelligence in her eyes, the sort of intelligence which alienated her from the general public, and because I'm a weirdo, I figured I might have a chance with this one. She seemed distracted, though. I was working on an interest rate swap analysis, and I needed a fucking break. I also couldn't, in good conscience, let her walk out of that coffee shop without taking my shot. Now, gentlemen, this was the kind of woman that in my blue pill days I probably would have fallen in love with. She was everything I told myself I wanted physically, and intellectually she stimulated me as well. However, ever since ingesting the red pill, I cannot help but perceive love as the illusion I believe it is, and this has become integrated over the years into my very physiology. Jean-Paul Sartre would contend that I have become the sadist, as it were, in the loving relationship, and hence the woman that I am with adopts the masochist role. In short, on his essay on sadism and masochism in relationship, Sartre contended that one person always has the power, the sadist, while the other feels the emotional pleasure, the masochist. But you cannot have both. The sadist is the one in control, the masochist the sensate. "I don't hang out with men after 9 o'clock," she stated, crossing her arms with resolute conviction. I talked to her that night on my couch. It's episode 1 of Firefly droning on in the background. She reveled in her corruption, gentlemen, with a deep masochistic glee. It was a glee she seemed eager that I share. "Open up to me, Coterie," she bade me naively. My geisha, Saiko, had no thought of what she meant, or the consequences would be if I allowed myself to open up, as it were, to feel vulnerable, as she invited me to do. Indeed, I believe she was trying to increase her pleasure by testing me to see whether or not I would open up, and then relaxing when I didn't, knowing that I was quote-unquote strong enough to provide for her and protect for her in the sort of evolutionary biology sense. Now, Saiko cared nothing for any of these things. She was lost in the euphoria of being able to experience feelings and be the vulnerable one. It was a form of currency I tendered to her in exchange for access to her body and to her acquiescence to my leadership and direction in the sake of the relationship. There was a strong urge, gentlemen, to allow myself to be vulnerable around her, to disclose to her all of my fears, and to be vulnerable. I have heard this described many times. Stardust called this desire to be vulnerable male mother need. TFM described it as male vulnerability need. I am not here to proffer a different name or to call it something. I am here to expand upon the process of opening up, quote unquote, and how females exploit the power afforded to them by this process in order to begin to gain the emotional upper hand within the context of the relationship. Now, this is important, gentlemen, because both in the microcosm for each individual man and in the macrocosm thereby in society, it contributes and promulgates gynocentrism. Now, women sleep with men that they find attractive, but they marry men with money or status or whatnot. This is common knowledge. Women will typically continue to sleep with men that they find attractive long after they have married the man with money. Alpha fucks and beta bucks and all that. Think about what a woman loves. Look up, you guys ever look up that, it's like 100 things I love about my husband. And it's like how much he loves me, how much he provides for me, how much he cares for me, how much he makes me laugh. It's all about her. When she says she loves a man, she may love his intelligence, his charisma, his strength. These are the sorts of traits of a man who might be able to provide and protect. This is the essence of female attraction to men, their capability. When a woman loves a man, e.g. loves his strong traits, she generally is happy to follow him and to acquiesce to his various desires because she is relaxed in his presence. The sort of woman a man could fall for, interestingly enough, is the sort of woman a woman becomes when she is relaxed in the presence of a man she believes in. Now, the thinking man realizes this, and he perceives the situation. He says, well, she claims to, and it really does seem like she wants to nurture me now. She wants to give me affection and love and to make the pain of my life go away. She wants to understand my struggle and all this drivel. Everything I've thought about night after night, before I fall asleep. If only I could find this one Nawalt, this one woman who really cares about my personhood. But think about it, gentlemen. If that thinking man decides, well, freak it, I'll just go ahead and allow myself to be vulnerable for a second, he will suddenly seem to her less than he was, less intelligent. After all, what resourceful, brilliant man needs another to take away his pain? Surely he can figure out, using his craftiness, how to look after himself. He must not be so smart after all. He seems less charismatic. Now he is the one receiving value, not giving value. So his charisma must be a facade. He seems less strong. After all, certainly a strong man would endure his pain on his own. She could begin to think, well, maybe he's not so strong. Once the man opens up, a metaphorical pathogenetic response begins in the man, whereby the woman realizes the power she begins to have over his mood. Remember that a man is never allowed to express any sort of emotional vulnerability in this society and still retain his full level of respect. This is not good, obviously, but it is what it is. So she may be this man's only source of emotional solace. Meanwhile, she may be receiving emotional solace from all of her girlfriends, all of her, I guess they're called beta male orbiters. I don't really like the alpha-beta dichotomy, frankly, but we all know what I'm referencing there, so for brevity's sake, I'll use it. While he pedestalizes this woman because she is his only source of emotional comfort, she begins either to find a way to sever what she now sees as a non-valuable leech, or if he has some sort of objective value, like money or status, she may begin to perceive him as a subordinate to tie around her finger and exploit. She will do this, continuing to provide him quote-unquote love and affection on the outside, while growing resentful as hell on the inside. And he will continue to relax around her, blinded by his love, as he receives love from her, and continues to fall deeper in love with her until he has fully pedestalized her. Now, many men fall so deeply for their angel, they become blinded to the fact that she stopped loving him long ago and began loathing him. His emotions have blinded him. So when she divorces him, he's dumbstruck, and then he falls into a red pill rage. Unfortunately, this has happened to a lot of men. Now, I'm not assigning blame here, obviously, but I have tried to outline how the process works from end to end, objectively. The woman finds it difficult to have pity for a man that she perceives as wretched, because she may be vulnerable around a lot of people. And most of the people in her life probably show her affection when she feels vulnerable. If a man feels vulnerable and he opens up, trying to find that external validation and affirmation of his personhood and his worth, the pathogenesis begins. And the woman that he is with begins to resent him. Now, she may intellectually understand why he is becoming dependent on her for emotional solace, but that does little for her mood, doesn't it? Now, women are the gatekeepers of sex. Biologically, they have evolved to become accustomed to receiving value in exchange for sexual access, and so it seems only natural that they would find some way to profit off of the manipulation of a man who, through allowing himself to become addicted to his own vulnerability to her, continues to demand emotional value. And she will try to balance this by demanding physical or monetary value from him. To her, this seems like an exchange, and it's only fair. Here's the thing, gentlemen. Too often in the MGTOW community do men fail to realize, I think, this is my humble opinion, they fail to realize women prioritize things differently. So I'm going to actually strongly disagree here with what seems to be a very common MGTOW precept, that women's hypergamy extends only to money or material things or status. I do believe hypergamy is real, but I actually contend a woman will choose a man who penetrates her heart and her mood with masculine love and affection over a rich man 9 times out of 10, even if she won't be as rich or as high status. Now, this is to say that a woman will choose a poor man who makes her feel validated and externally understood, makes her laugh, fills her with the natural joy of life, over someone who is rich or high status most of the time. However, a man loses his capability to penetrate her mood the moment he allows himself to become vulnerable. And the dynamic of the relationship shifts to where he is now the one demanding emotional value. Once this happens, even once, her image of him as this strong, masculine, joy-inducing presence cracks irretrievably, and she falls out of infatuation forever. Female nature can be incredibly cold in this regard, and this is the reason so many men have been eviscerated in divorce court, blindsided. Now, being that this is the way I perceive love and vulnerability, this pathogenesis of vulnerability and love, when Saiko asked me to open up, I just grinned ruefully. After all, she was in the middle of giving me a perfectly good shiatsu massage. Let's talk about you, Saiko, I said. Why don't you open up to me instead? Perfect love doesn't exist for a man, gentlemen. Let's just face it and fucking move on. But that night I figured a shiatsu massage from a beautiful woman that I was about to leave, that was a decent consolation prize anyway. Thank you, gentlemen, and have a pleasant evening.